Okay everyone, welcome back to our deck building project. In the last video you saw the pier footings go in and the limestone screening go down and so on. Now it's time to frame the floor. So I'm going to talk about the different parts of the deck, and I'm going to introduce a few concepts for deck building, some of which also apply to house building. So you'll learn that. Now, the parts of a deck. So it all starts with the ledger board against the house. This piece right here, this is the piece that gets put in against the house and fastened with masonry anchors in this case. Now, I don't want to get into too much detail about this. There are rules about how this ledger board is to be fastened to the house. But for the purpose of simplicity, I'm just drawing a ledger board and that's it. You should know that all the stuff I'm going to talk about here, including the ledger board and everything else, it kind of, if you apply for a permit to a municipality, so say for instance to the city of Brampton, then you're going to have a document like this where you have to apply for the deck, and you also have to, let me scroll to the end here, you also have to comply with the rules that they set out, where they give you some technical specifications here. You see this stuff. For how a deck is built, how it's fastened to a house, and that kind of thing. Okay, we're not going to jump into that. I'm going to keep it simple here with a single ledger board, and then we'll move on. So that's the ledger board. These pieces here, these are called joists. Okay, and those are the main piece in a deck for structure that hold up the decking material. Around the perimeter, the pieces that go around the perimeter here, this piece and this piece and the piece over there, those are around the rim, so we call them rim joists. Okay, joist as well, but they're rim joists. Underneath we have posts holding up the deck, and we have beams, and in this case this is called a two-ply beam, which means that there's two pieces of wood for each beam. In addition to the floor joists and the rim joists, there's also these smaller pieces called blocking or solid blocking in between the joists. And those just add some rigidity to the deck, and rigidity and strength to the deck. And if you notice the way that they're fastened, they're sort of staggered. Okay, this piece, they're offset from each other. They're not in a straight line. The reason for this is to make the nailing easier, so that all you have to do is nail through the end here and nail through from the other end. If they were in a straight line, you would have to do something called toe nailing, which is a little bit more tricky. So this is better. You can end nail it. Okay, now that covers the parts of a deck, or the main parts, and then we're going to look at the spacing. So how far apart are these things? In house construction, it's pretty typical to have things that are 16 inches apart, and what that actually means, they talk about 16 inches on center. So on center means, this is what it means. Let me grab my tape measure here. 16 inches on center just means that from the center of one, so let me find the center of one here. Okay, and there we go. So from the center of one to the center of the next one is 16 inches. That's kind of what they mean by 16 inches on center. You see it says 1'4" there. 1'4" is 16 inches. So from the center of one to the center of the next is 16, which also, I mean, is from the edge of one to the edge of the other is also 16. Okay, now why is this? They've done this for a couple reasons. First of all, that by spacing at 16 inches, that will make the deck strong enough. But second of all, it has more to do with house construction, where you're trying to fit plywood or drywall to a surface like a floor or a wall. Okay, and the plywood and the drywall comes in certain sizes that's based on 16 inches. So if I were to measure, here's how to lay the stuff out. If I were to take a tape measure and measure from the end of the deck, okay, from the end of the deck to that first joist, to the center, from the end of the deck to the center of the first joist is 16, okay? And then from the end of the deck to the center of the second one is 32, which is 2'8". And so on and so on. You just keep adding 1/16 of an inch until you get up to, let's go up here to where 8 feet is. Okay, there's 9 feet. And let's go here to the center of this one. You see that is 8 feet. So from the end of the deck to the center of this is 8 feet. And that's important. If this was a house, so forget about a deck for a second. If this was a house and we were putting plywood on this floor, then a plywood comes 4 foot by 8 foot. And so you would be able to fasten the piece of plywood to this joist and then start a second piece on the same joist. And I'll show you what I mean. I have a piece of plywood lying around here somewhere. Let me go grab it. It is over there. Okay, let's go get that piece of plywood and we're going to bring it in here. So I just have to grab it in a certain spot here, right there. Okay, and grab that again, and here we go. And let's go put it on the deck. So we're pretending that this is like we're building a house instead of building a deck. We're not going to put plywood on a backyard deck, but I'm putting it here just to show you the concept of 16 inches on center. So if the piece of plywood lined up with the end there, let's go look at the other end of the piece of plywood. Okay, it lies halfway on. You see that? It lies halfway on that joist. And as a result, because it's halfway on, if we were building a floor, then we could start a new piece of plywood that would also go halfway on there. Okay, so there we go. Next is the idea of a cantilever. The word cantilever just means, let's have a look down here. So cantilever just means that these joists are hanging out over the beam. So you see this distance here? See how it hangs out and hangs into midair, kind of? That's called a cantilever. And that's a pretty typical concept in floor framing, where you're allowed to hang it out. But again, just like anything else, there are rules about that. You can't go too far. But those are all spelled out, you know, in the building code and in the municipal requirements for a deck and so on. Next are the joist hangers. So let's go inside here and we'll talk about joist hangers. That's these things here. These are made of galvanized. These are metal that's been galvanized to keep it so it doesn't rust. These joist hangers are very, very strong pieces of metal. You nail them in. I didn't show the nails, but they get nailed into the joist and they get nailed into the ledger using nails that are very strong and also galvanized. And you know, it's one hanger per joist. And then underneath here, there's also brackets that can connect a post to a beam. Okay, in addition to the saddles that we talked about before. So 3 pieces of hardware saddles, the post to beam connectors, and then we've got the joist hangers. Okay, so that's about it. And then I want you to have a look at the video so you get a sense of floor framing. But that is about it.